And we are live. Yes, we are live. This is it. Trying something new out here for the first time. Trying out a stream, a live stream. We are live. It is the week 4 game preview for NFL Week 4. Obviously, this is the Fantasy Football Vampire Fantasy Football Forum. We're going to preview each of the games coming up for week 4. I'm going to give my takes on who we like more, who we like less. This is a big week. It's a big week. There are lots of injuries this week. Some of your studs that you drafted high are out. You need to find replacements. How do we like replacements? What are they going to do? Where do we find them? Are there any on our waiver wires? Are there some gems on our bench that we can go get? And let's take a look at this. Typically, I've done this section, and typically we do this on Fridays, but I apologize. Scheduling differences this week. I have had to do it on Saturday now, but we had more information come out, which is good. So it means better information for you, our listeners, here on the forum. All right, so we're going to start with the London game. It is the Saints traveling and the Vikings both traveling to London to face off. And there's some pretty big injuries in this one. The Vikings are a 3-point favorite. This game actually has a pretty low total for the week as a 43.5 point total. Last I looked, now that line may have changed, but for now, I'll just say it's a 43.5 point total. Jameis Winston and Michael Thomas both did not travel to London. They are out. They are out of this game. As far as questionable, Dalvin Cook last week got his shoulder injured, and apparently this is a degenerative injury that he has continued to battle. Those that have rostered Dalvin Cook in the past know this. They know what its potential. If you have Alexander Madison, Cook looks like he's going to play. So it might be a split. We don't know. You're going to have to kind of play that one out. But as far as questionable for the Saints, we have Kamara and Landry both listed as questionable for the Saints. They look like they're going to go. I think this is actually going to be a big Kamara week this week with Andy Dalton at the helm. And I apologize. I am trying to pull up my other tab here to get some more info here, but it appears that it's not wanting to pull up for me. So hold on. Bear with me one moment. This is fantastic radio here is what this is. Here we go. Okay. What I was going to say is Minnesota against running backs. They have been averaging, and one thing that we're going to start looking at now, we have data points, not just offensive data points. I've been tracking defensive data points and not looking at, oh, well, this team allows this. Well, this team allows that. This team allows this against this position. No. We have to be different. We have to be better than just that. I can't tell you this guy's great because this guy is a great athlete. He's going to do well. Well, sometimes great athletes a little underachieve a little bit, and we have to be ready for that. So what I want to start doing is now that we're in week 4, we are going to have data points to know what teams are averaging. 1 week isn't enough. 2 weeks isn't enough. 3 weeks, you're very on the verge of this. Remember, I said this before in the preseason. We build our weekly rankings. We build data points off of 17 different data points. It's not a lot. You can't make very many definitive statements or decisions on 17 different data points and tell me it's fully accurate because it is not accurate. But against the run, the Vikings are allowing 25, almost 26 completions. They also are allowing, as far as yards, they're allowing 275 yards. This is a team you can run against. This is against quarterbacks. Well, I mean, Andy Dalton could have a pretty decent game with that, but I really want to look at Alvin Kamara here because I think he's going to have a pretty decent game against against Minnesota. Excuse me, but it's almost still the same. It's 23 attempts, almost 24 attempts with 110 yards a game. That's actually with a touchdown average a game. So we got 8 targets on average that are being allowed to running backs. Alvin Kamara can still pass catch really well. You want this type of output for your running backs. If you have Kamara, I know he hasn't quite done super hot lately, but you want to be able to have this. You want to have this ability to be able to go up, catch passes. These are the games you go play him. So go play Kamara. I think he's right now. Kamara is ranked. This is off Fantasy Pros, by the way. Kamara is only ranked 12th behind Jamal Williams, behind Aaron Jones, behind Fournette. I think you can get Alvin Kamara higher than 12. I think he could be in the top 10, honestly, with the usage that he potentially could see. So I would play Alvin Kamara with confidence if I have him and I'm using him. So I would definitely play Alvin Kamara with confidence. We're going to get off this game. Well, I got to talk about the Vikings a little bit. We gave the Saints their love. Let's give the Vikings some love too. Like I said, Cook looks like he's going to play. And if Cook plays, this is good for if you have him, because you know that, I mean, hey, he could get it. It could be a split. We don't know. The Saints, they are giving up 26 rush attempts. So if this is a split field, you're just kind of playing the guy if you want to trust him. I so glad for many of my teams I don't have to make this choice. I would rather not make this choice, if I'm being honest, because if you're a Cook owner, you start him. I don't blame you, but one hit, he could be done. And it's the Madison show. I told you guys on Tuesday for our waiver wire show that you need to go look at Ty Chandler. Ty Chandler is the guy that is a speculative ad. You need to have him on your radar if this Cook injury is worse than what we think it's going to be. But the Saints are giving up almost the same as the Vikings, 109 yards on the ground with it's about a third of a touchdown a game. So, yeah, I mean, I think touchdowns are probably going to come through the air. I want to look at the wide receiver, though. The wide receiver points against for the Saints, because I think this is where you're going to, obviously, if you have Justin Jefferson, you don't need me to tell you go play Justin Jefferson. If you're looking for me to say go play Justin Jefferson because, you know, he's had some down weeks, you're doing fantasy football wrong if that's the case. Okay? You're doing it wrong. Okay? As a whole, wide receiver groups against the Saints are getting 152 yards. Okay, they're getting 10 receptions, 152 on average. On average. So, I think this could be a condensed to Justin Jefferson. I think he has a bounce back. You can play Adam Thielen. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. You can play him. You're probably not playing KJ Osborne. I know KJ Osborne had the big week last week. That was a different week, different team, different situation, different style of play. I like KJ Osborne. If you added him, you had him. Fantastic. You should have done that 2 weeks ago. But if you have him, wait. It's not the right time. Don't do it yet. He should be on your bench. All right, let's get rolling faster here. Now I've got my system now a little bit better. We have the Browns and the Falcons. Cordell Patterson came up as a game time decision now after looking really good. And I've not been one that has been on Cordell Patterson. I wasn't on him the year he broke out. I wasn't on this year because pattern, I've seen too much of it. But if he's a game time decision, this is a good Browns run defense anyway. You're probably not starting them. You're probably not starting Algier. You're probably not starting any of the any of the guys behind Algier, or behind Patterson in the run game for uh, the Falcons. And honestly, if you do, uh, just kind of temper expectations. Right now, Patterson, I think he is ranked 14th. If he goes, I think that actually goes down. I think guys like Khalil Herbert go ahead of him. I think Damian Pierce gets ahead of him. Josh Jacobs, honestly, could be finishing ahead of him in this situation. The way to beat Cleveland is not through the running game, it's through the air. Cleveland gives up 21 attempts. They're giving up 186 yards, so that's good. But I don't think, what am I saying? I don't think that Atlanta has the ability to run the ball like other teams do. Actually, I was the wide receivers again. I apologize. They're only giving up 65 yards. That's bad. That's really bad. That's what threw me off. So that actually goes back to my point. If you're Atlanta, you want to play Drake London. You want to play Kyle Pitts. You want those guys. Those are the two that could actually do well because they're giving up 21 targets and 186 yards. That's good for Drake London, Kyle Pitts. That's good if you're streaming Mariota. That's potential. Now, I think Mariota is a little bit down, but what can you say? Obviously, if you have Kareem Hunt, if you have Nick Chubb, I think Chubb is way better than Hunt. But they use him 1A, 1B. They use him the same. It's the frustrating way to play. But on the ground, Atlanta, they give up fair amount on the ground in running. I'm honestly looking for them here. Yeah, they give up almost 200 yards on the ground. So, yeah, they're going to run. But you're playing Amari Cooper if you have him. You're playing David Njoku. If you stream the tight end, if you found yourself in a way, you decide in your draft, I'm punting tight end, man, that's it. That's what you want. David Njoku is the guy you want to have. So you got it. The Falcons, they have a sneaky good secondary, but I think Njoku is the guy. If you haven't, we're really excited about playing him. Yes, Amari Cooper had a really good week last week. It was also against the Pittsburgh, and they have a very awful. Let's just be honest. They have a very awful secondary. I think Atlanta's a little bit sneakier good of this. The Browns are only favored by 1.5, and this has a 49.5 over under for the week. I think this is one of those sneaky, could be shootout type games. So if you're playing pieces out of this, I think the way to attack this is you're playing London, you're playing Pitts if you're on the Falcons. If you're playing the Browns, you're playing Chubb, you are playing Njoku, you are playing Amari Cooper. If you're desperate, Jacoby Brissett is going to be a great play for a quarterback. I would actually put Jacoby Brissett over Marcus Mariota. Let's go next. It is a divisional game. And every time we have a divisional game, what does that mean? Anything can happen. Doesn't matter what's happened before. It doesn't matter if that anything goes, anything can happen. And it is the Washington Commanders and the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys are a 3.5-point favorite. They are 2-0 under Cooper Rush. And looks like they're going to have Cooper Rush yet again. Dak Prescott looks like he's trying to get up and go, but not quite there for this week. Questionable coming back from his ACL injury is Michael Gallup. He looks like he's going to be a go. If you have him, I personally would say see what you have first before you play him, although he's probably not a bad play. Dalton Schultz looks like he's probably going to be limited. If you have him, I'm waiting one more week just to see. Okay, don't rush him out. I think the Cowboys are in a sneaky spot here, and I hate saying this because I know so many Dallas fans that they're just annoying to listen to sometimes. And yes, you can come hate on me, Cowboys fans. That's fine. I really don't care. So, but let's look at against wide receivers. Dallas is giving up 145 yards. That's not good if you're Terry McLaurin. That's not good if you're Jahan Dotson or Curtis Samuel. So, really not good situation there. If you have CD Lamb or if you're playing Michael Gallup, the Commanders are giving up 217 yards. This is a good get right game again for CD Lamb. He could have had an even better week last week. He had one awful drop, but he made up for it. So, yay for him. But if you're playing Michael Gallup or you want to play, let's say you're in a pinch and you want to play Noah Brown, I think Noah Brown's probably out there in a lot of leagues. So I would go out and play them. Those are good wide receivers to go get. That's the type of thing we want to get. Cooper Rush, then. Very sneaky. Very, very sneaky. CD Lamb is currently ranked 12th by the Fantasy Pros site. I think that's about right, but I mean, he's probably, could see him getting better than Deebo Samuel. Also getting better than Michael Pittman, although Pittman has a very good situation coming up. Now, against the run, these two teams, because we all know Dallas loves to run the ball with Zeke. And Gibson has been doing well this year, but he's also, not as good. So, 96 yards if you're a Zeke owner. The Commanders are giving up 96 yards per game this year. So not the best matchup, also not the worst. It's kind of the middle of the road. So you're still starting him. You're still playing him. Dallas gives up about the same. They're giving up 94 yards on the ground with 20 attempts. So Gibson owners, this is a spot where if they're behind, this game's really going to come down to game script. If they're behind and they're throwing a lot, Gibson could see his work continue to be reduced by both Samuel and J.D. McKissick. Also, Brian Robinson's coming back. So if you're a Gibson owner, I get it. You're worried. I would be worried too. But you're probably playing him, although I don't see him any more than a low-end RB2, maybe a flex. If you have other options, I'd kind of maybe temper it. But again, like I said, this is a divisional game. Anything can happen. So, all right. Next up is the Seahawks and Lions. This game, one has a lot of injuries, which is very sad. Very sad. And two, I think actually has a higher appeal than most people really think, because this year it's the Seahawks. They really suck. They had their big win against Denver, but what have they done lately? Not a whole lot. And the Lions have played very good teams. They blew a lead and should have won against Minnesota. They played a very good Philadelphia team. They're better than advertised. The Lions are 4.5-point favorites. I think this game is a sneaky shootout. Vegas also thinks so. This game is a 48.5-point game. This game is on the higher end of what could be. I think this is a good spot. Now, despite saying that, I do get it. DeAndre Swift is out. That hurts. Amon-Ra St. Brown is out. That also hurts. And today we found out DJ Chark, our favorite boom bust wide receiver, DJ Chark, is going to be out. Ouch. That hurts. But we still have Josh Reynolds on the team playing. Still have TJ Hawkinson. You're playing Jamal Williams. You're playing, if you have Jared Goff, you're streaming quarterback, you have Jared Goff. Maybe you were hoping Dak Prescott would be back, and he's not. You're going to play Jared Goff. You're also going to play DK Metcalf. I think this is 1 week where you can start DK Metcalf, start Tyler Lockett with confidence, because the Lions defense, while I like the Lions defense, they are not that good. Now, we know Seattle likes to run, so you're going to play Penny. You're going to play, this could be a week to sneakily play Kenneth Walker too, especially in a DFS lineup. Dallas gives up almost 100 yards, 95.7 yards, and 2 touchdowns to opposing running backs with 21 carries. And then they also give up a pretty high 5 receptions a game 2 running backs. Now, on the flip side, Seattle. Let me find where Seattle is. I think this is alphabetical, and I'm not sure why. But anyway, we'll get this right. Seattle gives up 131 rushing yards. If you have Jamal Williams or you were smart or sneakily picked up Craig Reynolds, this is a game you could play both those with confidence. Jamal Williams, I think, is going to have a great, fantastic game. At 131 yards average giving ups, this is a game to do that. On wide receivers, I want to look up what the Lions give up for wide receivers because they give up almost 100. They give up 176 yards a game. They give up 14 receptions with 22 targets. This is a game that DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett can do well at. Geno Smith has been one of the best deep ball throwers this year. I get it. It's been 3 games. But it's been 3 games, and he's still doing that. Okay? This is a game, if you have them, you don't feel your stomach's kind of churning when you have to make that decision to start them. You have them. Start them. You can do it. On the flip side, Seattle gives up 134 yards a game. So I think you're still rolling with Goff. You're still doing that. Partly it's because of this tight ends, right? Seattle gives up 77 yards to the tight end. TJ Hawkinson is going to have a get right game here. This is a good game for TJ Hawkinson to have get right. So, play with confidence. Honestly, there's probably not, if you're starting wide receiver for Detroit, it's Josh Reynolds. Outside of that, I'm going somewhere else. So, don't read too much into the injuries. There's so many guys that are out there, but it's a boom bust, worse boom bust than what you get with DJ Chark. Next up, Titans Colts. And this game is a 42-point game, 42.5-point game. The Colts are favored by 3.5. What's questionable is Kyle Phillips. Not a whole lot, but let's look at the numbers again, shall we? So, like I said, Michael Pittman's ranked number 9 in Fantasy Pros. I think that's kind of where he should be ranked, right? We both know that Jonathan Taylor is gonna. That's what Tennessee likes, or Indianapolis likes to go through the run first. Even though they brought in Matt Ryan, they still want to establish that run. Tennessee also wants to establish that run. Okay, so against running backs, Indianapolis is only giving up 62, a little over 62 yards a game. And Tennessee, they are giving up 120 yards a game. So if you have Jonathan Taylor, this is a good spot for him. Okay, don't get cute and think, well, Jonathan Taylor hasn't done much. Now, on the wide receiver side, this is where it also gets interesting. If you are playing Treylon Burks, if you're playing Robert Woods, maybe, Indianapolis gives up 137 yards over the air. I think this is kind of a good spot for them where Derrick Henry, I think, is going to struggle a little bit still. He hasn't really shown the burst. He hasn't shown what he has in the past. But on the flip side, I know. It's Michael Pittman and maybe Alec Pierce and a very disappointing Paris Campbell and a high boom bust Ashton Dulin. But the Titans are giving up over 200 yards a game to wide receivers. This is an insane amount. This is one of the highest in the league as far as over 3 games, what they're giving up to wide receivers. Michael Pittman has a very smash spot here. If you have Michael Pittman, you're playing him. I don't care that he didn't score the touchdowns. I don't care that he's kind of been up and down. This is the spot to play him. Go out and play him. Next, Bears, Giants. Yeah. I mean, I think the Giants have kind of come down a little bit from their 2-0 start, but I think they're better than what we thought, right? Problem is, okay, for the Giants, they are a 3-point favorite. The Bears don't pass. We know this. I think the Jets have more pass attempts in the first half of one of their games than the Bears do all year. All year. David Montgomery is going to be a game time decision, I believe. Nope. I do apologize. I believe he is out, which means it's Khalil Herbert and the Giants against running backs. Right. Khalil Herbert is a better runner than David Montgomery. So if you have Herbert, you're excited about this. You're very excited about this. The New York Giants are giving up 126 yards a game to running backs. This is good news for Herbert. This is good news for Justin Fields. If you have Herbert, if you're able to get him off your waiver wire, or if you had him stashed already, if you had him stashed already, great job. I think this is going to be a game of the running backs. It's because the Bears gave up 115 yards to running backs. Wan'Dale Robinson's out. Sterling Shepard's out. Kadarius Toney's out. You got guys like Richie James playing for wide receiver, which you could have dart throws on him. This is a game about running backs. This is how these two teams want to play. Daniel Jones is not going to lead you to victory that often. It's going to come through Saquon, and it's going to go through Herbert, Khalil Herbert, that is. You don't like starting Darnell Mooney if you don't have to, because the Bears don't really pass a whole lot. Now, the Giants do give up over 130 yards on average to wide receivers, so that's a good thing. But the Bears have to pass. They're not passing. And it's hard. This could be a spot if you really have to start Mooney, go for it. But I think it's going to be kind of it's a hard pill to swallow. This game is also a 39-point game. Vegas doesn't see this game as being super high either. All right, the next up is Jaguars and Eagles. It says at 46.5 over under. Less. Remember this, less than the Seahawks Lions. They're sneaky shootout with Seahawks Lions. Now that line may have moved down since I looked at it yesterday with all the injuries. It's less than that, and it's less than the Browns and Falcons. It's a little bit higher, but it's kind of still mid. I think this is one of those games. I don't know what's gonna. I think the Eagles are seen as a 6.5 point favorite. I think Vegas sees this as the Eagles have been a dominant team. I've come out here in the preseason and said the Eagles are going to win the NFC. Not the NFC East, the NFC. Eagles are going to run through the NFC this year. Vegas, I think, sees this as good. The Jaguars, while they just shut out the Colts and they blew the doors off for the Chargers, I think it's kind of a letdown game for them. Trevor Lawrence, don't get me wrong. Trevor Lawrence is showing why he was the number one pick and why he should have been the number one pick. This is good for them. But Philadelphia, if you're a Jaguars fan, Philadelphia has only given up 149 yards on passing. Zay Jones is still hobbled with an ankle injury. It looks like he's going to play. He would be a dart throw play, but temper expectations for Christian Kirk this week, right? The Jaguars, on the other hand, they give up 162 yards to wide receivers. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts has been throwing accurately. This is a good sign for them. On the running back side, is Travis Etienne going to finally get his? Well, if this is negative game script, we should see some potential here. And Philadelphia only give up 83 yards running, right? The ball. And passing, give up about 30. So this would still be a tough spot for Etienne. So you're going to kind of have to hold it again for one more week if you want to see it. However, if you have Kenny Gainwell, the Jaguars give up 67 yards through the air to running backs. They give up 47 yards on the ground. That tells me the potential of Kenny Gainwell catching a couple and taking it up. Now, Miles Sanders could do this too, so I could be wrong. But the sneaky dart throw is Kenny Gainwell. He might still be out on your waiver wire. He hasn't really done much this year, but you could do a lot worse. I think this is a game Eagles get up. Jaguars are going to try to come back, which provides some value to Kirk and Lawrence, potentially Zay Jones. I think it's going to be hard for ETN, but Eagles get up. Jaguars are playing catch-up mode. Kenny Gainwell has a chance to break off a few long ones on this one. Next up is Jets and Steelers, and I cannot believe this, but the Steelers are only a 3-point favorite. Actually, I can't believe this. The Steelers are bad. Let's be honest. The Steelers are bad, and it looks like Zach Wilson is going to make his debut this week, and it's a good spot. The Steelers are a good spot for quarterbacks. Oh, man. Come on, get the right window open. Steelers are a good spot against quarterbacks. Let's look that up real quick. I haven't really gotten into quarterbacks because if you're looking for streamers, if you want to know who to play, first off, if you drafted a quarterback high, you have Josh Allen, you have Jalen Hurts, you have Kyler Murray, you have Justin Herbert because he is healthy this game. He's healthier than he was against the Jags. If you have Patrick Mahomes, like you're playing those guys. The guys where you have question marks against, the way I like to look at it, I'll use the Detroit game as an example. I like Goff. I don't like Goff as much because he doesn't have Amon-Ra St. Brown. He doesn't have DJ Chark. He doesn't have some of his weapons. That kind of lowers my expectation on Goff. However, I'm still playing Jared Goff. I think the talent's there, and I think the team's going to do enough around him to get him what he needs. He still has talented players. So let's go back on done with that quarterback rant. But let's go back. Zach Wilson could potentially start this week for the Jets. The Steelers, they give up 252 yards through the air, more than the Jets. So there's actually a sneaky play I like here for Pittsburgh. Deontay Johnson is going to get his. I'm not saying don't start Deontay Johnson. Please, for the love of God, if you if you drafted Deontay Johnson, you have him, and you're really thinking about, well, do I start him? Stop playing fantasy football. Please just stop. This is a game that I think has another kind of semi-shootout potential because these defenses are both bad. The Steelers give up to wide receivers. So let's talk about Zach Wilson to Garrett Wilson or Elijah Moore. We'll see who actually this is. We're going to start getting some answers. Steelers to wide receivers give up 181 yards. It could be a Wilson to Wilson connection. Could be Wilson to Moore like we saw last year. Now, the Steelers to wide receivers, or the Jets against wide receivers, give up 155 yards. Not as much to wide receivers, so there's more to running backs and tight ends than to wide receivers. But I think if you're playing the Jets, here's how Pittsburgh is going to look at this. Chase Claypool is going to run out of the slot. He has a distinct advantage against the Jets slot cornerback in size and speed. This is if you're really desperate for a wide receiver and Chase Claypool's out there, Chase Claypool hasn't done a whole lot this year. This is the spot to start him. I don't have slot numbers yet. We're still working some of that database numbers for that particular piece, but this is where I think we also have to be different. I coming on here and telling you what it does against one position, but I think we need to be able to break it down further. The more data points we have, the better I'm going to be able to break this down further for you to know, is it a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, a slot wide receiver? Is it tight ends? What are we talking about? Not just as a whole. Anyway, Chase Claypool, I think, is the sneaky dart throw of a boom guy this week. If you're playing DFS, Claypool's a guy very cheap to be able to build a roster construction around. you're still starting Najee Harris. But what I do want to look at and highlight is the running backs. I think it's a Brees Hall get right. I think he overtakes Michael Carter this week because Pittsburgh allows two running backs 121 yards. They also allow 5 receptions with 43 yards per game. I think this is a good spot for Brees Hall this week. I like him better than his ranking. I think he is ranked, 29. He's better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He'll be better than Kareem Hunt. I think he'll be better than A.J. Dillon, too. So I think Brees Hall outdoes his rank of 29. So, all right, we are getting through these games. And I apologize. It is allergy season where I live. Not fun. So just bear with me here as my nose is causing some issues and leaking here. Next up is the very excitable Bills and Ravens. The question mark here on this game is Gabriel Davis. And if you have him, you're taking a risk that his ankle won't roll and he's going to play. But it's a good risk to take because the Ravens really have not been good against pass wide receivers or against wide receivers this year. This game is at 51.5 over under, and the Bills are only a 3-point favorite. So this has shootout potential, and Vegas sees it as that as well. But what I want to highlight here is wide receivers. What you're really starting for with wide receivers here, Buffalo against wide receivers only give up 143 yards a game. They held Miami in check, whereas the Ravens did not. The Ravens give up 280 yards a game. Baltimore's going to try to compete and hold this game via run. And it's going to be hard. Buffalo is a very good run defense. So I think this is a get-right game for Buffalo, and this is kind of a low week for Lamar. I think if you have Lamar, you're playing him, you're starting him, but kind of temper those expectations. Next up is Chargers, Texans. And Keenan Allen's out again on this one. Herbert is looking good, but questionable. Damian Pierce is questionable, but he looks like he's going to play. Same for Brevin Jordan and Farrell Brown. I think this is kind of a get-right game for the Chargers. They're a 5.5-point favorite. Honestly, this is a game you can run. So if you have Eckler, you like that. You like seeing being able to have the touches there, but you're still playing Herbert. You're going to play Josh Palmer. I would say Josh Palmer is a good target as well. And you're playing Mike Williams. This could be a good get-right game for Mike Williams. Week 1, Michael Pittman torched this Texans secondary. Torched them. Absolutely torched them. So play your guys. But interestingly enough, you're still playing Damian Pierce. I think this is a great spot for Damian Pierce. Regardless of game script, I think Houston still wants to run the ball. Lovie Smith's an old school guy. He likes old school football. It means he likes to run. But I've said it before, Houston's going to be pesky. We just saw the Jaguars go in and blow the doors off the Chargers. Houston could do some things where they have to force the Chargers to come back. So don't be surprised at the outcome of the game where the Chargers are in comeback mode for the game. Next one is Cardinals-Panthers. I think this one is pegged wrong. It's a 42.5 point over under or total points, where the Panthers are actually a 1.5 favorite. The problem is there are not very many good or healthy wide receivers for Arizona. AJ Green's out. Dortch is healthy. Marquise Brown, I think, plays, but he's hurt. So it's been what we've seen for the past couple weeks for Arizona. DJ Moore, CMC, Laviska Shenault are both landed on the questionable, but it looks like they're all going to play. For the first 3 weeks, The Panthers have played the Browns, who ran all over them and came back and won against them. They played the Saints, who Jameis Winston still threw over 300 yards. I think this is a sneaky game for Arizona and Marquise Brown, especially in this one, where last week he just got peppered with targets. You saw what he could do. I think this is that sneaky get right game. I'm not a big believer in Arizona and what they do this year, but I think this is kind of that get right, what you can expect. Like, they might start writing some things this year. And I think this kind of starts building the case, for what we can see. The Panthers give up 181 yards through the air to wide receivers. They give up pretty good amount on that. It's not as much as like Baltimore, but they give up a fair amount. So don't be surprised if Arizona comes out and wins this one by a touchdown or 10 points. That could be an upset there this week. Patriots Packers, again, Mac Jones looks like he's going to be out, which means I am lowering my expectations for all of New England's players. Questionable here: Alan Lazard, AJ Dillon, Christian Watson, Marcellus Lewis, and then on the Packers or on the Patriots side, Jacoby Myers. I think Myers is now out, if I remember reports coming. I think this is going to be a game of running. I get the Packers have Aaron Rodgers, but really it's about the running game. The Patriots do very well against taking the ball out of the other team's hands. Vegas has the Packers as a 10-point favorite of this one. Honestly, I think this is going to be a 3-point game. I really do. The Patriots aren't as good, but they're not horrible. They're not awful. So I think this is a 3-point game, but I think it's low scoring. So if you have other options, I get it. You're going to play Aaron Jones, but again, I think the Packers are going to be forced to make the wide receivers beat the Patriots. Bill Belichick's going to make the guys that don't typically do something beat them. Broncos Raiders. This one could be a sneaky shootout as well. I think people have this. It's a 45.5 game. The Raiders are a 2.5-point favorite, but I think this is a get-right game for the Broncos. The Broncos, I called it, were not as good as advertised in the offseason. This is kind of that get-right game, though. I get it. The Raiders have underachieved this year, and it kind of shows. Last 2 games here, we're going to highlight and scheduling things, so we're going to go quickly here. Chiefs and Bucks. The Chiefs are a 1.5 favorite and a 45 game total. Game time decisions are Julio Jones and Chris Godwin. Tom Brady gets Mike Evans back, but you also have questionable tags on Gage and Perriman. For the Chiefs, you have questionable marks on Ronald Jones, Juju, MVS, and Hardman. I think all those guys, Ronald Jones being the exception there, he'll probably be an inactive just because the Chiefs have shown us that it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it's Jerick McKinnon, and it's Isaiah Pacheco. If you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you need to trade him fast because Jerick McKinnon's out snapping him. Okay, I'm not saying this is going to be a good run game because Tampa Bay has a good defense. I think it's going to be an ugly game. But the way Kansas City is going to win is it's going to be Juju underneath. It's going to be Travis Kelce down the seam. It's going to be able to open up, lanes to be able to maybe have some screenplays. I think Kansas City does win this, but it is a close game. I think this one is fairly well pegged. Last is Rams 49ers, and it's, again, a divisional game. Who knows? This one is close because these two teams play each other well. We know the Rams want to have Cooper Kupp with the ball. They want that. Niners are a good run defense, so even if you have Cam Akers, you're, kind of stuck not being able to trust him. But if you have to, I get it. It's not fun. It's not good. You don't want to. If you're the Niners, though, Debo's a good play. You like playing Debo. Ayuk's kind of that dart throw, especially with Jimmy G. We're hoping for more, but it just hasn't done. So I apologize for some of the quickness in some of these games. If you have thoughts or you would like to have specific questions, put them in the chat. I will try to answer as many as I can. But good luck out there in week 4, and we will do a reaction show after week 4. Stay tuned for that. And may your fantasy team have the best of luck this week.